mind? Where is my mind? Where is my mind? Well, I was swimming in the Caribbean. The animals were hiding behind the rocks. Such a fish, and it's where he's trying to torture me to say, where is my mind? Where is my mind? What's up, guys? Where is my mind? Come on, here we go. That's what I'm talking about now. With your head, feel the scale in the head of the clouds. Charlie's tricky out spinning. Yeah. Your head will collapse. Cause there's nothing in it. And all I have to tell you say, where is my mind? Where is my mind? Where is my mind? Everybody do this with me. Here we go. It's at the top of the range for me. The last one has to be without the guitar. Here it comes. Oh my gosh. Guys, it's Friday. We got stuff to talk about. I've got a really good question that I had asked to me recently about Wim Hof method. We'll be talking about, actually been reading the book again. Actually, I got to say, out of all the Wim Hof books that are out there, now the recent one, to be honest, I've been too busy to read it. I've heard nothing but good things from my fellow instructors, and from a lot of you guys have really been like, Jesse, what do you think of the new book? But I got to say, this one right here, I actually have 2 copies of this book. I don't know why I have 2 copies of this book, but I do have 2 copies of this book, and I'm not ashamed of that. Actually, I sometimes lend one out, and if they don't bring it back, it's not the end of the world. But The Way of the Iceman, I do highly recommend, especially for a lot of the science that's in there and some good stuff. Hey, it looks like some familiar faces or some names and handles that I recognize. Good to see you guys. Hey, thanks for I have a decent taste in music. It's, not everybody's cup of tea is my taste in music, but hopefully at some point I'll play a song that you like. If you haven't heard a song that you like, maybe at some point I will. And because I think music is really important. It's something that it adds a lot to my life. Whenever I was actually, music is, I would consider one of my first loves. I started playing guitar when I was like 14 years old, which, when you're 14 years old, you got to work a lot. You got some emotions that you've got to do some working on when you're 14. And so I remember I wrote songs from 14. Maybe sometime I'll play you one of those songs I've written. I've been in all kinds of bands and a lot of on-stage time, and just enjoyed every bit of it. And sometimes I was in bands we played just complete dive bars, but we still had fun. So anyway, hey guys, how's it going? It's Friday. Happy Friday to everybody. I've got a really good question that I want to start this session off with. And of course, if you guys have comments and questions, these are usually really good times for us to communicate. I got to apologize if you've emailed me. Hey, Brandon. Hey, by the way, Brandon, is it snowing where you are right now? Because off and on, I'm seeing snow here. Now, the downside is it is above freezing right now. We're talking maybe a degree or two Fahrenheit, even above freezing. And when I'm referencing Fahrenheit for the degree or two, because I know you guys like to tease me for for my Celsius deficiency. I don't know. I feel like Fahrenheit, there's more degrees between, like if I were to say 0, 1, and 2 degrees Celsius, that's quite a few there's a lot of little degrees between those markers when it comes to Fahrenheit. It's like just barely above freezing here. So I'm looking out the window, hoping that it starts to accumulate so I can go rolling around. Actually, I've got a bunch of video. I was in Wisconsin over the weekend doing some awesome fun stuff, and got to swim in some ice holes. Of course, whenever we say ice hole real fast, it's a lot of fun. I mean, and I think being around Wim has turned me into, I just enjoy those kinds of puns. Hey, ice hole. So I've got some things to hopefully upload. Earlier this week, I uploaded a short playing some guitar out in the cold, and I had a few comments about that. Don't quit your day job was one of the most common ones. Okay, just so you know, it was way below freezing, and that does a number on an acoustic guitar. So it wasn't my fault. Maybe it was. I don't know. Let's see. I had a really good question, actually from Instagram, and I want to apologize if you've reached out. Yeah, you're right, Timothy. I will hurt my guitar. This is actually the guitar that I used in that video. Is the one that I travel with. So I've got a travel guitar, and I've got my sentimental guitar, and then the black. You'll notice my travel guitar is missing. My sentimental guitar is this one. The one that I just played on. This one's been with me since before I was born. This one is actually, it has no, this is an Intel inside sticker that I put on there whenever I was in high school. It has no brand name. It was just, but it's probably one of the best guitars I've ever played. My travel guitar, though, it gets a beating. It really gets a beating. It's the one that I let Wim play. It's the one that if you're ever at an event where I have a guitar, 9 times out of 9, it's going to be my travel guitar, which is kind of beat up. Yeah, Paul, exactly. That was the one I was doing No Woman, No Cry with on the short that I released earlier this week. It's, yeah, Timothy, you would cry if you knew all the conditions that guitar has been in. But I've had it since I was, I think, 18. So it's somehow still alive. It's a miracle, really. It's a music miracle. It's a yeah. In Simple Jim, Pixies, take me back a few years. Absolutely. Yeah, there's that, and I think that song has been in so many soundtracks that it's just. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, that has got some legit. It really does. I can't believe how long these guitars have lasted. My sentimental guitar, I've only recently, I would say in the last 10 years, called it my sentimental guitar. Before, this is the one I would take on the road. I would do shows. You'll notice there's quite a bit of wear and tear to this guitar. And it's seen a lot of use. I'll put it that way. And I'm afraid it's going to put it down. No, you're staying put. Good. Anyway, I've got a question from Instagram, and then I'll get to your comments and questions here in a minute. Someone said, "Boiler up, baby." Andrew. All right. Boiler up. Well, see, that's something here in Indiana we know all about, right? In Indiana, that we've got this huge rivalry between Indiana University and Purdue. So I'm assuming you're making reference to that, my friend. If not, then I'm not 100% sure what the reference is, but boiler up nonetheless. So Andre recently reached out to me on Instagram, and I say recently kind of loosely because he waited at least, I think I took a week to get back with him. So one of the blessings and curses of growth and is, and just overall, just the growth of this channel and my audience is that in the early days, I would receive maybe 1 or 2 emails a day, and maybe I'd even go a day without 1 or 2. Now I'm getting around 30 to 50 messages a day. And I will say, if you've messaged me, most of you know, at least, I really work hard to make sure to respond. I really, really do. And because I really appreciate the fact that you're reaching out to me. Like, who the hell am I? So I really do appreciate it. But Andre waited for some time, and I'm going to respond to his, and I'll just kind of read what he had to say. And that's why the title of the session is what it is. So Andre says, "Hey Jesse, I love your work, and I reach out to you because of your experience with Wim Hof method, and I have some questions. I found Wim Hof method really interesting and found that it could help me do more, focus, deal better with daily stress of work and family, and be a dad." And I got to say, yeah, man, yes, So he said, "So I've downloaded the app, and I follow Wim's instructions by doing the breathing exercises, the cold shower, the stretching, the push-ups for almost 10 days straight now." Excellent, man. Congratulations on sticking with that. And so, okay, so he's getting into it, and he says, let's see where this is the danger of looking up whenever I'm trying to read a longer post or a longer message. He says, "I feel great after every step of it, and I will continue because it fits well into my personality and my daily routine." I kind of like, I'm just going to take I'm pausing, but I'm putting my finger where I left my spot. I do kind of like whenever people talk about how Wim Hof method or just breath work in general, or the people that are, there's some, and I know for a lot of us, it's hard to believe there's a lot of people out there that do cold training that have no interest in Wim Hof method or breath work at all. And I know that might be surprising to a lot of people, but there's a lot of people that I know, that I meet, that I talk to, that I coach. They've got no interest in doing anything but just cold training. And what is always so crazy and kind of cool is when people talk about, man, it's me. It is, they'll say, it's just so me. It's my personality. It really goes with who I am. And so and there is something to that. Many of you guys, I either have met or I will meet once I get back on the road. I've got some dates, guys. Chicago, you're on the calendar. North Carolina, you're on the calendar. Wisconsin, I'm coming back to Wisconsin, Wisconsin in March. We're settled. We're figuring out the dates. So I'm getting back on the road. Okay. So I'm going to meet a lot of you guys, I'm sure. And if I've already met you, but the thing is, there's a certain personality trait that, now it's all different types. I'm not going to say it's always the same type of person, but there's this it's this one little thing that we have in common, that it's just this, okay, we do these crazy things. Lansing, Michigan, Simple Jim is asking, that is going to happen. I don't have a date yet. So if you're in the Michigan area, specifically Lansing, I'm definitely coming back. I'm thinking it's probably going to be this summer, because the place where I'm going to go is a little bit smaller. So I'm going to probably put that one at a later time. The ones I'm going to do early are going to be kind of either outdoors, where we're going to do breath work outdoors, or we're going to do breath work in a giant space, right? So we can really space out. And then in Lansing, it's a little bit smaller of a studio. So I'm going to put that in the summer. Anyway, back to Andre's message. I love these live sessions because I do get to kind of go off on my tangents. And I've read many of your comments about my videos, especially my older videos where I would go off on tangents just in those videos. And I have listened. I've edited a lot of my tangents out of my most recent ones. So anyway, he says, but I'm wondering if there is any side effects for the first couple of weeks of Wim Hof method. So, okay. He says, for the last 3 days, it feels like I'm a bit more stressed, that my head feels wavy sometimes, and I get a bit of dizziness. Also, my left ear feels a little blocked. I know you're not a doctor. Yes, I'm not a doctor. So don't take my medical advice. This is never medical advice. This is just my own personal opinion. He says, but could this be caused by Wim Hof method? All those 4 symptoms, they just came all of a sudden, kind of all at once. Thanks in advance, Andre. So, okay. So this is actually something that I have a little bit of experience with, not myself. With myself, I've never experienced any anxiety or anything like that from Wim Hof method. For me, it's always been, whoa, what a load off of my shoulders, what a load off of my heart, my soul, my mind, my body is just, right? But I remember actually whenever I when we were actually training. So in the early days, there was another instructor in the Midwest with me, and I worked with him. He and I worked together. Great guy, name is Jared. And he's moved on to other things, but in the beginning, it was kind of interesting. I was out in Los Angeles, and here was this guy from a small town in Illinois, and I was from a small town in Indiana. And we were just like, oh man, this is so cool. And he shared with me that Wim Hof method, his practice, for a little while, he was feeling more tense, more anxiety. And he felt that way specifically during and after the breath work. And for me, I was just like, really, that's kind of interesting. That's weird, but that's anytime I find something out that's weird, I'm like, yes, tell me more, So we started kind of working on it together. And this was during actually the summer that we were training together to get ready to go experience the masterclass, which was when Wim just really tested us. And for him, it went away pretty quickly. But the things that he implemented, and just based off of his own intuition and listening to his body, I would like to relay to you if you're having this happen. Because occasionally, that is something that I do hear. Sometimes people say, hey, whenever I do the breath work for Wim Hof method breath work, I feel a little bit more tense. I feel some more anxiety. And when I'm doing it, I feel kind of shaky sometimes and scared. And so what happens is when we do Wim Hof method breath work, it is serious business, right? Wim Hof method breath work is very intense. And for some of us, especially early on, it's more than what we maybe can handle. And so, and whenever you do deep breathing, you do activate the sympathetic dominant system. And just like Wim says, a lot of times you do produce an enormous amount of adrenaline. And if you take a look at the Pickers and Cox study, the endotoxin studies, they show you're producing an enormous amount of adrenaline. And like Wim says, you're producing, in many cases, more adrenaline than what a person produces right before they go take their first bungee jump. So that's an enormous amount of adrenaline. And so there is that's something that you're going to feel and experience. Now, I would say for most of us, we don't feel that it's not something we perceive as anxiety or anything, because we feel like, okay, I'm in control. I'm doing this. Also, if you're doing the protocol correctly, there is the flip side where you strongly activate your parasympathetic dominant system. But for many people, they stay they huff and puff a little too hard, a little too fast, and they get a huge adrenaline dump, and they kind of stay more sympathetic. So they're finishing and they feel a little bit more fight or flight. So if this happens to you, it's not the end of the world. And actually, Andre, I responded to him because I wasn't sure if he'd be watching today. I don't know if you're here, Andre. If you are, awesome. If not, hey, that's okay. You've really helped today's conversation. But I responded to him. I let him know the advice I'm going to give to you. And what he told me whenever I did that, and of course, I apologized to him, and I'll apologize to you again if you're watching, Andre. It took me a week to respond. But basically, for him, it went away in 2 or 3 days. He just kept doing the method, and it just went away. And I would say 99% of people that I talk to who have this issue, there's no changes you need to make. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just that this is a new experience, and it oftentimes has nothing to do with Wim Hof method, to be honest. Oftentimes it has something to do with maybe something else that's going on in your life that you're just not even perceiving as, oh, it couldn't be that, right? And so oftentimes that's what it is. Now, having said that, if that is something that's happened to you, I recommend slowing down your breathing. Breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. Don't do mouth breathing 100%. What that's going to do, it's going to slow your breathing down, which is going to keep you from getting quite as fight or flight. It's going to keep you from getting quite as much of an adrenaline dump. And, over time, if you continue to do, there's other benefits to nasal breathing. And I don't care what kind of breathing you're doing, right? It activates your diaphragm more effectively. It reduces chest breathing. It's something that actually it prepares the air and makes it perfect for whenever it gets to your lungs. So there's a lot of benefits to doing nasal breathing, regardless whether you're doing any kind of breathwork protocol or just in everyday life. But if you're doing any kind of breathwork, especially Wim Hof method breathwork or any other breathwork that calls for really intense, what we call superventilation, if you've read my book or if you're familiar with superventilation, where that's where we are controlled, but we're hyperventilating. We're exhaling enormous amounts of CO2. We're breathing deeply and quickly. If you're doing this with nasal breathing, it's going to help you get more control over that adrenal dump. And then in time, like it happened for my friend Jared, it was no big deal. And in time, and Andre didn't say that he made any kind of changes at all. And it went away, and from vast majority of people, it's going to just go away naturally anyway. So, and again, for the vast majority of people, it had nothing to do with Wim Hof method breathing. It had more to do with maybe you had too much caffeine, or maybe you're going through a stressful time, or maybe, who knows, there's a million different things that could be happening in your life that might affect it. So always be mindful. And this is something actually for those of you guys who, we just started the Breath Mastery 6-week course. That's my very first, this is the flagship of my breathwork courses. And so over the next 6 weeks, we started Wednesday. And then for the next 5 Wednesdays, we get together. We're going to go over different aspects of breath work, and we are going to basically learn how to develop your own personalized breath work daily routine. And one of the things we talked about on Monday or on Wednesday, so this very first one, which is, in my opinion, the most important thing when it comes to breath work, is introception, right? Learning how to listen to yourself, learning how to listen to the signals and all this. There's just so much. Just think about this. There is so much information. There is so much information, first of all, I guess just in general, but there's so much information that you are taking in as an organism that you're not even consciously aware of. And this is because there are safeguards, there are mechanisms in our brains that prevent us from perceiving everything all at once. And that's very good. It's very helpful because if you were somehow trying to focus on everything, you couldn't really focus specifically on anything and dedicate your brain to that one task or whatever. So what normally happens is you only notice something whenever it goes wrong, or whenever there's a sensation associated with it that's painful or pleasurable. And so, so when we practice breath work, oftentimes we're dealing with subtle changes as opposed to those insane changes. And so it really pays to closely listen to those subtle changes. And it takes practice. And I would guarantee there are many of you guys watching right now who are very in tune with your body. You understand what it's telling you. I've got some friends that it's different for everybody, because there's some friends that will, so there's some friends of mine who will say, I know that I'm going to catch a cold whenever my lower back feels this funny twitch. or they'll say, I know that I am running. I know I haven't hydrated enough because my little toe will have a cramp. There's obvious ones, or there's ones that are kind of like weird, out of the ordinary. But then there's others that are just like, no, I understand that even though I feel like I've been sleeping 8 hours a night, I know that my immune system is, I need to rest more, or they can really feel these things out. And that's something that we can all do. It just takes time, and it takes attention. And that's something that in the 21st century that we live in now is in very finite supply. It's always been in finite supply, but we haven't always had these distraction machines. And believe me, I'm on this distraction machine a lot. I really have to watch how often I'm on there, because I'm communicating with my Patreon members. I'm communicating with other instructors of different things. But Wim Hof method, different breath workers I want to communicate with, personal trainers. There's just basically just other people. I don't know why I have to go through all the list, but there's so much of that, so much distraction that it's I would say really uncommon for a modern human being to even understand what's going on in their own bodies. So it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of focus to get that. So anyway, let's see here. So let us know if you ever, okay. So Timothy, I saw something about Oregon, and guess what? Okay. So Timothy Bond says, let us know if you ever travel close to the West Coast. I'm out in Oregon. So that's on my to-do list, my friend. Timothy, I'm hoping to work something out this summer for an Oregon experience. And this is the thing that I cannot really plan for right now. I'm just not 100% sure that's going to happen. But if it does, it will be, I'll talk about it on this channel. It'll be on all my social. Let's see here. And Mark, for loving the channel. I appreciate it. I love this group of people. This is always a lot of fun. Let's see here. Let's see. Mark says, I would love to know how someone becomes a Wim Hof instructor. Oh, okay. Just head on over to wimhofmethod.com and apply to go into the academy. I will say that it's at this point, you're going to need to exercise a lot of patience due to travel restrictions, due to everything that's going on in the world. There's a huge backup right now, but that's the best way to do it. Or that's the only way to become a Wim Hof method instructor. Let's see, he says, what is the motivation and what are the steps? Well, there's the steps. The motivation is going to be different from different people. He says, let's see, Wim Hof method really helped me with anxiety, focus, and not been sick since I started. Yeah, for me, that was my first foray into breath work. And well, not really my first foray into breath work. I got into pranayama first. But it was really it just blew my mind how good I felt. And that was what really got me started into being a breath worker. Before that, I was not a personal trainer. It led me to, do a lot of things and looking into all kinds of the way our bodies works, the way our minds work. And, it's just been awesome. So, let's see here. We all have the information of the cosmos within us to beginning of creation. Absolutely there. That's cool. I believe that, Timothy. Let's see. Jesse, wondering how your clinic went in Wisconsin. Tony D. Let's see. It went fantastic. It was a dream. It was very special. My clinic, it was a weekend experience in Wisconsin. There's snow on the ground the whole time. The people that were there were just fantastic people who were really mindful of each other and just really easy to work with and very open to each other. And especially in the times that we're living right now, it's important that people are really conscious of each other's comfort levels. So everybody was so respectful of each other's comfort levels. And no, it was fantastic. I got to work with my friend, James Stewart, who James doesn't have an Instagram. And so it's not like I have much of a, like, you should get an Instagram because other than I want to tag you in the pictures from, so I haven't put a lot of pictures from that weekend on Instagram or social media or anything like that. Actually, I was in the video of me that I posted, I think it was like Monday or Tuesday. It had to be Tuesday, singing No Woman, No Cry in the snow. That was in Wisconsin. So it was just ideal. And I'm going to go back. So I'll be, as soon as we've got the date solidified, then I'll post the sign up link, and there's very limited seating. I think it is going to be between 15 to 20 people allowed to go. It is very worth it. So highly recommend. It was kind of one of those dream weekends for everybody. So let's see here. I'm using the Wim Hof method to cope with brain fog. Hey, me too. And a brain disorder. It doesn't relieve it, but I feel better during and after the cold exposure. Cold exposure, I will say this: if you are experiencing brain fog, okay, let's just talk about cold exposure and what it does for your brain. And this is actually, so here's a little admission on my part. My son is the only kid. So it's freezing every morning whenever I drop my son off to school. He's the only kid who, all the other kids are bundled up in their coats, and his coat, and this isn't because I make him do it. It's actually because he's like, I'm just going to keep my coat in my backpack, and then I'm just going to run in to school from the car in my short sleeve shirt or whatever. And I'm happy about that, because when we're in the cold, okay, one of the things that is so well documented when it comes to cold exposure that it's just undeniable. When we're in the cold, our brain secretes norepinephrine. So the locus ceruleus, this part of your brain, secretes norepinephrine. And when it does that, small doses, or maybe not small doses, but the average, little cold exposure you do is going to give you a dose of norepinephrine. And norepinephrine, it can help you focus. So those spelling words aren't going to learn themselves, right? So, his spelling test is today, and we worked really hard. The word THAN, than, that one was giving him some trouble. He's kindergartner, okay? But I want him to have that dose of norepinephrine to help you focus, because it also can help with cognition, memory recall, and focus. Now, when you get super high doses of norepinephrine, we can experience brain fog, not the kind that you're probably experiencing, but we can experience not necessarily brain fog, but we experience anxiety. And whenever you're really anxious, I'm sure you guys know what this is like. When you're really anxious, when you're really nervous, it's, how your brain kind of goes blank sometimes, or how you just can't figure out. It's almost like there's so much going on. I just can't think. And a lot of times we talk about the fight or flight or freeze, and sometimes we freeze. Well, that's what's going on oftentimes. But whenever you get into the cold, whenever you train with the cold, first of all, you're giving yourself a dose of norepinephrine, which is great for brain fog. It helps improve your ability to focus. But you're also training yourself. Now, this is my theory. Okay, this is my theory as to why cold exposure, and even whether you're doing it with Wim Hof method, which that's what I recommend, or without, which is totally fine too. But cold exposure is so good for us, and especially good for anxiety, because when you do cold exposure, that same chemical that comes out of your brain whenever you're inducing, when you're in the cold training, is the same chemical that induces anxiety whenever you're stressed. It's norepinephrine. And so in my experience, I noticed a huge reduction. The harder I train in the cold, the more relaxed I am in everyday life. And I feel as though it's because I'm training myself to feel that chemical, to feel that result in the brain. I'm becoming, and no longer am I freaked out by it. I'm used to it. I'm like, oh yeah, there's that chemical that I'm used to now. And the cool thing about cold training is you're never going to get a tolerance to it. Like, as far as like, it's not like you have to progress colder or longer in order to get that same effect. Like if you take a 5-minute cold shower in, let's say 64 Fahrenheit, which would be, I guess, like 15 Celsius. That's a pretty warm cold shower. But maybe 10 Celsius, okay? You're going to take a cold shower in 10 Celsius or 8 Celsius. If you do a 5-minute in 8 Celsius every single day, you get the exact same dose of norepinephrine. Day 1, day 1000, no matter what. So it gives you that opportunity to train yourself. So that is why I believe it helps with brain fog. So keep it up. Astro Sheepy, what a cool name. Astro Sheepy, keep up your cold training, keep up your breath work too. And remember, there's more breath. If Wim Hof method breath work isn't what if it's not just doing it for you right now, well, guess what? You've got a whole buffet of breathing techniques, and all of these different breathing techniques, they're very valid tools that you can use to enhance your life. So I don't want to ever make it seem as though there's only one way, because there's not. There's lots of ways. Okay, let's see here. Let's see. Hey, wait a minute. Did I see somebody? Okay, I thought I saw somebody put some money down. If you did, thank you. If you took it back, that's okay. But that's an easy way to get your question answered first. Hey, I'll accept tips. But anyway, let's keep going down here. So, Kiwheat 235. I think I kind of just answered that, especially with regards to cold exposure. For more in-depth information, of course, always refer back to wimhofmethod.com for any time you're really wanting the more in-depth information. Also, I do some workshops where I get more in-depth on it, but all of those things that you mentioned help with anxiety. So I think we're kind of covered there. Let's see here. Okay. Do cold showers heal eczema? So Nelly asked a question about eczema. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Half the time I pronounce things the wrong way, and people tease me, which I also tease myself. I remember, and I'll get to your question, but I did a video on tinnitus, or not tinnitus. Yeah, tinnitus or tinnitus, this ringing in your ears. And the one that's up on the internet now is the corrected one, but I put one up and I was pronouncing it tinnitus, and somebody made fun of me, and he made some good points. Sometimes you have to just say, yeah, it was pretty damn funny. Let's see here. All right, we got a but hey, real quick for the eczema, cold showers can help with eczema. I would never say that there is necessarily a cure, sadly enough, to eczema. But I know a lot of people who have used cold showers, and they have definitely helped them reduce symptoms. So I would say it's definitely not going to hurt. All right. Hey, Carolyn, thank you for the tip. I appreciate it. If you have a question, you are first in line. Let's see here if anybody Let's see. Is that Carolyn or Carlin? Let's see. It's Carlin. I can read. I promise I can read. I'm a teacher, so so I got multiple jobs. Oh, hey, Mark Mooney. He did make a thing here. So he said, thanks for responding to my message. I'm afraid that I have to go. Oh, okay. Hey, Mark. Well, thank you. If you're watching the recording, thanks for great videos. You help so many. Greetings from Germany. Well, guten Tag. I took 1 year of high school German, and I really like the language of German. I really enjoy that language. I was trying to learn Dutch for a while, and German and Dutch people, they won't admit it to me, but there's a lot of similarities between the two languages. Ich is I think, I mean, there's some of them that phonetically sound the same, but they're spelled differently. And anyway, but hey, thank you, Mark. And Carlin, if you have any questions, you have first dibs at any kind of question. I appreciate any tips. You guys are really great. So let's see here. Let's see. That would be amazing. Even if it was years from now, I do not care. Thank you for the info. Oh, okay. Yeah. If you want to become an instructor, man, I would love, and hey, I would love to someday be there at your training. So that's something that, like, for instance, my friend James Stewart, who I did the Wisconsin event with just last weekend, I met him at his training. I was in LA helping with with training their class of new instructors, and that's where I met him. And I was like, "Hey, you live in Chicago? Oh, cool. Hey, I'm going to do a workshop in Chicago. Why don't you help me out with that? I'll show you how to put on, a workshop and all the event, all the backstage stuff." And he did, and then before you know it, we were really hitting it off. Not to mention, his name is James. My name is Jesse James, right? So we're dads. We make dad jokes. Let's see here. I do Wim Hof, and then I get a video from Meredith, and I'm here, and it's really good videos. Oh, thank you, Paul. Yeah, Meredith For Real is a podcast. I did interview with Meredith. Let's see, what is her? I know Edwards, Meredith Edwards, I believe is her last name. She does a really cool podcast, Meredith For Real. I've done 2 episodes. I like that podcast so much. And so you might want to take a look. Actually, Meredith's January, or at least the first week or second week of January podcast was a guided breathwork session, just me doing a guided breathwork session with music and stuff like that. And actually, it's a video from the Patreon club. And so if you're looking for guided breathwork, I did post it in the community page on my YouTube channel. But if you missed it, it's still up there on the community page. It's an older post of mine. But you can just go to look for Meredith For Real, and it'll be up there. And I'm glad you're here. Glad you're here. Nice to have you here, my friend. Let's see here. Hey, Jesse, I got back to Florida from a very northern country, and the warm water is a bummer. Yeah, actually, I have a friend who lives in Florida, and I interviewed him not too long ago. He's really into jiu-jitsu. He's very competitive. He competed at the World Championships this year. Ben Pelton, and actually, he's a fellow Wim Hof method instructor as well. He's also trained as an instructor in like everything that's cool. Really, just everything that's cool. He can teach you. And he lives in Florida, so he takes ice baths and stuff all the time. But there is a difference between even just living in a cold place versus a warm place. Even people who wear coats, and stuff like that, get some adaptation just from the fact that you're out in the cold all the time. And then, living in the warm climates. But I will say there's a lot of good things that are down there too. So he says, I'm thankful for my bathtub and bags of ice. Absolutely, Jinx. Let's see here. Let's see, Dan. Hey, Jesse, love the channel and these Q&As. Hey, thank you, my friend. Can you explain why slow breathing, let's say 1 to 2 inhale to exhale, works for decreasing tension? Is there a limit for session times for this kind of breathing? Um, so I can sort of explain why. One of the smart aleck in me is like, well, that's just because that's how the body works. but it was a good question. That's a really good question. I just think about what's the guy, the Feinstein. Oh yeah, he was the physicist. I forget his first name for some reason. Feinstein though was his last name. And one time he was asked, why is it that the positive, when you put positive to positive or negative to negative on a magnet, why do those repel? Which is actually a really cool question. I mean, I think we've all wondered that. And of course, he gave a smart aleck answer, just like what I just did. And like, I think he was kind of a smart aleck guy. But I'll tell you what the basics of this, my friend Dan. So the biggest reason for that, why slow breathing affects it, and this is something that I would also like to, I explain it more in depth here in my book, A Practical Guide to Breathwork. Oh, so by the way, yours won't have this line on it. I've just, this is my author copy. But anyway, the reason why is because your breath provides top-down signals to your autonomic nervous system. And I know those are loaded terms that is like, okay, what did you just say? So what it means is that when you breathe, you're constantly doing this right now. So right now you're doing it. Everyone's sending signals top down to your autonomic nervous system. And what's happening is that your breath sends that signal to your autonomic nervous system, and it lets you know if you're safe or if you're in danger or a lot of things. Now, the vast majority of the signals that you get are what we consider bottom up signals. So environmental signals. So is it daytime? Is it nighttime? Are there predators coming my way? Is it insanely hot? Is it insanely cold? Am I, flying through the air? All these things that would inform you you're either in a safe place, safe conditions, restful, state is appropriate, or things are bad, things are dangerous. You should worry. You should have this other kind of physiology. We call it the sympathetic dominant state. And I will tell you that this right here is probably the most common reason why we are stuck in that fight or flight state. We just love it. We just love getting upset and fearful, and we're just hooked on it. But that's a different talk for a different time. But the thing is, when you're resting, you're automatically breathing in a slow pace. And whenever you're in a active state, you're automatically breathing at a fast pace. So it's kind of a two-way window or two-way door or something, to pathway. So if you breathe, if you just did that right now, you're going to send signals to your autonomic nervous system that I'm in a fight or flight state, and your physiology will change accordingly. Likewise, you're going to send signals if you breathe slowly that you're in a safe place, and your physiology changes accordingly. The focus on a longer exhale versus inhale has more to do with the vagus nerve and vagal stimulation. We're not sure why exactly that works. We just know that it does. The vagus nerve, and when you stimulate your vagus nerve, you actively put yourself into a state of rest and digest. And that's something that long exhales tend to help us do. There's a lot of other ways to do it. There's a lot of ways to advance that and make that better, but that's what that is. Okay, let's see. Hey, I got a $10 one from Jack Friddle. Oh, I already like you, Jack. Ayo is how I normally answer the phone. And I have to watch, I have to watch and not do this at like just all the time. As a professor, and this week and next week, I'm insanely busy with professor prep work. If I answer the phone and it's, like the chair of my department, ayo, but that's how I normally answer the phone. Hey, brother, it's nice to have you here. So Jack says, the cold is intimidating. Yes, it is. The human body and mind perceive the cold as a noxious experience. So yeah, absolutely. I have been cold training pretty intensely. Awesome. Way to go, brother. I love it. Do you ever use a sweatshirt ever? Yes, I use a sweatshirt. Let's see, I don't think I have it. I have a go-to sweatshirt, actually. It's a sweater. I have this go-to sweater that I wear as a throw over all the time. And actually, I've gotten a lot of compliments on it. I don't know where to buy one. I have people ask me where I got it and how they can find one and stuff like that. But I have no idea how to like help a person buy one of these. But here's the thing. When you're cold training, and this is something in my ebook on cold training. I wrote the ebook because so many people were hurting themselves, getting hypothermia, frostbite, and they were having a lot of problems. And I don't want cold training to be this thing that, is a controversial thing. It's not. It's something that's good as long as you do it with discipline. It requires discipline. And Jack, that's, I'm all about training intensely. Obviously, I'm assuming you're training with discipline, but I'm also going to assume you're like me and sometimes you overdo it, or you might overdo it in the future. It's, not the end of the world, but we want to try to avoid, catastrophes. But I do want to just say that I'm not always training in the cold. Today, I trained in the cold. I did 5 minutes and it was about, I think, 40-degree water, which would be, let's see, that is 4 degrees Celsius. I'm getting it. So I was in 4 degrees Celsius water for 5 minutes. That's not a hardcore training for me. When I was in Wisconsin, we had this challenge we were giving everybody on day 2. So on day 1, after we finished our work, and our work was all outside in the cold, then we had to go do safety checks for the cold exposure challenge, which was in a frozen over lake. Well, the first hole we dug, we got in and we realized that I'm 6'1", and I realized I couldn't touch the bottom, and I was just swimming in freezing cold water. And at the same time I was working. So it was one of these things where I was trying to think about, okay, maybe there's a spot, maybe there's a way that I can direct participants that they can safely be in this really deep stuff. So I was trying to work my way around. My partner, James, he's 6'5", so he was up to here pretty much. And he actually had to dive down because we dropped, he dropped it, but it was because he was working harder than I was the day before on it. He dropped the pick. There's this ice chipper thing and he dropped that. And so he had to swim underneath. And so we were out trying to figure out how this is going to work. I don't know how long we were in the ice. Well, eventually we determined there is no way that this is a safe thing for other people to do. So later that day, we did another hole, and I told James, I was like, listen, man, I'm just going to go ahead. You went underwater and swam and stuff. I'll get in and I'll check it out. So it was a heavy day of cold training. And then I did the same thing the very next day, pretty much. So there's some days when I train real hard, and there's other days when I don't train really hard. Today was just kind of a regular day. But if it would snow again, I'm going to go and roll in the snow, but I don't know if that's going to happen. But I guess, Jack, I'm sorry for going on, but I want to make it clear to you. Yes, you can wear a coat. You don't have to feel like you can never be comfortable. It's like I always say, I go to the gym and I exercise every single day that I can, but I don't live in the gym. And that's because I want to be healthy. If a person never stopped exercising, you would actually hurt yourself. You'd succumb to injury. You would never actually get healthier because you're not resting. So go out there, have a great cold exposure, and then put on your sweater if you like. Go sit next to the fire, warm up. That's okay. Have a wonderful rest of your day. But just remember, there's this one part of my day that I prep for the cold. I get in the cold. I give myself some time after the cold to let my body warm itself up. I stay focused. I've got my cold training time, and then, hey, enjoy a nice sweater now and then. It's totally okay. Now, will you see me wearing warm clothes very often? Some days, yeah, some days, no. I will say this today, I feel really strong, but yesterday, for some reason, I didn't. I still did cold training, but I wore warm clothes, and I was listening to my body, and I was just like, okay, well, wear some warm clothes today. I still wear fewer warm clothes than the average person, but that's just me. So, Jack, thanks so much for your contribution just now. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for the question. Let's see here. Let's see. Timothy Bonds, he says, any information on how cold training helps with addiction recovery, or is that a personal experience? I'm a week sober. Hey, congratulations, my friend. Off of marijuana. Off of marijuana, and you've been smoking since you were 14, and now you're 21. That's a tough one. So if you've read my book, okay, I'm gonna. How many times can I, plug my book today? But if you've read my book, you know that I was addicted to drugs, and I smoked weed all the time, but I also I was physically, chemically addicted to opioids, and not to mention that, but pretty much everything else that allowed me to run away from responsibility, from being, pretty much anything that allowed me to run away from discomfort. And so I will say that now for me, I didn't know about any of the stuff. I didn't know cold exposure was a thing. I didn't know breathwork was a thing. Whenever I was coming off of these things, I was able to slowly, it took me about a year, and it's something that, I personally, I'm not saying this is everybody's path, but for me, I was able to say, okay, I know the thing that is making me miserable is this. This is something that is not serving me. I am a slave to this, and I don't like being a slave. That is not me. I am not this weak slave. I want to be in control of my actions in my life. I don't want to constantly feel chained. And that's something, my friend, Timothy, I would say, I don't even like the word sober. I would consider you free, my friend. Timothy, you're not just you're not a week sober. You are 1 week free, because you are making your own decisions. You're not being, dictated by something that's not serving you. Okay. So, and this can be anything, but the thing is, look at this as I am free. Now, if I could go back in time, I would certainly tell myself breath work, okay, of all kinds. There's a few kinds specifically. I would for sure say Wim Hof method, because you're able to endogenously produce a lot of the chemicals that are going to keep you from having withdrawals. In fact, cold exposure, if it's marijuana that you're trying to rid yourself of, cold exposure, there's some evidence that you actually produce endocannabinoids when you are doing cold exposure. And so you're doing that, but also opioids, a lot of the endorphins, a lot of the things that make us feel good, feel happy. Now you have to work for it, right? And that's where you're going to start building an amazing amount of resolve, because one of the things that you're going to see when you start training in the cold is that you start to realize, I am a person who can make difficult decisions. I am a person who can do things that are not expediently comfortable. And once you realize that you're that person, that you can make decisions on your own, that you can make a difficult decision and move forward and benefit from that decision, that's freedom, my friend. And that's something you learn whenever you train in the cold. Regular cold exposure, you're looking at this cold shower, you're looking at this ice bath. I mean, I've been doing it for years, and I'll say there are many times when I'm like, I don't want to do that right now, but I make the decision. I get in there. I'm happy I did it. I get out. I feel great, and I've done this. I've actually, in a way, I've given myself a certain degree of therapy that says when I make a difficult decision to endure discomfort, because hey, man, being high is pretty comfortable, right? I remember that being high is super comfortable. And then you're not high anymore. And then you're just like, I guess I have to face reality. Now, I would also offer you the encouragement of saying this to you. One of the most powerful things you can do when growing up, when deciding, you know what, I'm not going to be, Timothy is saying, I'm not going to be a little boy anymore, is saying that there is more in the real world that the real world can offer me. I can do more and drive more and be happier in the real world than in the fantasy world. And I would consider any kind of regular inebriation living in a fantasy world, because it's not real. Okay. I'll have a few beers now and then, but when it's not serving me, when it's not, when you're anything, I don't care. I'll have a piece of cake now and then, but if I'm doing it every day, I'm living in a fantasy world. But whenever I decide I'm going to take control of my life and I'm going to live in the real world and actually push forward, Carl Jung talks about that's when we actually grow up, when we stop living in that fantasy world and we start living in the real world and realize that our actions in the real world can make us happier than our actions in a fantasy world. So Timothy, I hope you check back in with us, and congratulations. And just know that you're not alone. You're not alone. So keep it up, and congratulations on your first weekend. That was just your first week. Let's see. Oh man, there's a lot of stuff here. And I am, we've been going for about an hour. Let's see. I'll do a few more. How much should I stay in the cold shower? Grady, Amir. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. It depends. It all depends. And that's one of those things where the deeper you get into any kind of training, the more you learn about everything, the more you realize everything depends. It all depends. So, quite literally, there's been research done on cold showers, and it says that if you just add 30 seconds of cold exposure to the end of a warm shower, that you receive enormous amounts of benefits just from that, and that you that it showed a 60% reduction in days missed due to sickness. So, there's actually a lot of evidence. Just 30 seconds is fine. In that particular study, they did 30 seconds, 1 minute, and 1.5 minutes, and they didn't show any difference in the results. However, if you talk to most cold trainers, we typically will push colder and longer until we eventually find what I would call my happy place, what we might consider maybe the ideal zone. And so for me, a 10-minute cold shower in the coldest of cold is beautiful. But for others, a 5-minute cold shower is great. It really, and this is another reason why I wrote that ebook on cold training. If you haven't checked it out, it is on my website, jessecoomer.com. It's just because I've seen a lot of people get really into it, and then they shoot way far. And by a lot of people, I also include myself. I got into a freezing creek in my first or second year of training in the cold. It was probably my second year. And I forced myself to stay in that freezing creek, moving water, and the sides of the creek were frozen, moving water for 10 minutes. And I'm telling you, I probably should have gone to the hospital. I didn't. But I was wrecked the rest of the day. So just because one person says, hey, this is this is where my perfect, my happy place is, doesn't mean it's where you should automatically go to. So go there with care. Timothy Bond says, thank you, Jesse, for that exact thought process that made me start Wim Hof method and Kriya Yoga. Oh, that's really cool. For my children, myself, I appreciate your reassurance deeply. Well, hey, brother, dude, just keep with it. You're doing great. When something isn't serving you, you've got to make those sometimes difficult decisions, sometimes not so fun at first, but then you realize, man, a year from now, whenever you drop something that wasn't serving you, something that was really getting in the way, and maybe it's great for other people, maybe other people, they love it, but you get it. But for me, it's just not for me. And that's totally fine. That's totally fine. Man, whenever you drop those negative things and pick something up that's helpful, because oftentimes, especially in addiction, I will see people who they'll go through the rest of their life as a former drug addict or as a recovering drug addict. And I know that's the vocabulary we use. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with saying that, but what I'm saying is, I guess the mindset, a lot of people leave that empty hole in themselves and they don't fill something up with it. And for me, I couldn't do that. I had to let a part of me die and then birth something in place of that, or else that thing would not really die. There'd be a seed of it left and it would have grown right back into me. So for me, what I did while I was quitting drugs, specifically while I was quitting prescription painkiller addiction, I enrolled in graduate school. I became an English professor, but it gave me something to focus on, something to strive for, other than what I was trying not to do. If all you're doing is focusing on what not to do, then you're focusing on the thing that you really shouldn't be focusing on. You should be focusing on this beautiful life that you have, that getting rid of that thing is allowing you to pursue. So for me, it was very difficult. It was probably more difficult to do it that way than if I had a clear head, right? Than if I wasn't experiencing withdrawals all the time. But it gave me something to focus on, and it gave me something to see progress. I could actually see progress. I could see myself becoming more of the person that I wanted to be. And when you do that, the rewards, you start seeing those, you start feeling those rewards, and you start not even missing that thing that you're trying to quit. You're like, how can I even quit it faster? For me, there were physiological things that I had to be mindful of. I didn't want to have seizures and things like that, but it was a way for me to move forward instead of constantly just not doing that thing. Let's see here. It's a great Friday. It's kind of dark. It's cloudy out. There's no snow coming from those clouds though. So I'm a bit miffed at the clouds. Let's see here. There's a few more. And so Jinx was wondering which book I showed. So I'm going to answer that question quite easily. This is my breathwork book, A Practical Guide to Breathwork. I tell you basically why breathwork works. I go through some of the history in the West on how breathwork made it here. And I take all the mysticism out of breathwork, not because I don't respect the mysticism, because I learned from a lot of mystics, but I feel like that is a stumbling block for a lot of people, and I don't want it to be. I want everybody to practice breathwork, because if you are human, you're doing it anyway. If you are a human being, you are already influencing your autonomic nervous system with your breath. Okay. And there are so many people in insane amounts of anxiety because they have an erratic breathing pattern or they have a breathing dysfunction. If you're one of my clients, you know that the first thing we look at is your breathing mechanism. How are you breathing? I always take a look. I'm like, okay, we're going to really do this. Okay, breathe like this, breathe like that, breathe like this, hold your breath, big breath in, all these different things I'll do. And then we test your CO2 tolerance and all these things. So yeah, that's this book. It's going to cover, it's basically a compendium of a lot of different breathing techniques, why they work. And even though it's not like all breath work techniques, there's no way, I mean, there really wouldn't be any way to do that. That's just too big. But it gives you all of the categories, all the basic categories. So, and for each category, I give you different actual techniques, and I describe how to do them and things like that. In fact, if you're not much of a book reader, I am coming out with the Audible, and that's going to be coming out hopefully at the end of this month. It should have been out on January 1st, but there was some kind of a issue with the cover art and grumble. Anyway, Nico says, my hands cramp up during Wim Hof breathing. Any idea why? So yeah. So whenever your hands cramp up during Wim Hof method breath work, it's because of a thing called tetany. And that's a medical term for whenever essentially you've changed you've reduced the CO2 in your blood to the degree that you're getting non-voluntary muscle contractions. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not a problem. Actually, I discuss it in this book too, but there's nothing that it's not harmful. And if you don't like it, if it's not comfortable for you, just slow your breathing down and it will go away. Let's see here. So Paul's talking. Okay. He said, wow, thank you for your honesty. I've been clean a little over 4 years. Congrats, man. He said, honestly, I've been, okay, let's see. 4 years now. And I'm helping recovering people. And this is what I can do to help. Yes. Clean is free. Absolutely. Yes. Freedom. I mean, you feel so much better. And like if you are actually healthy and in control of your thoughts and actions, that's high, man. That's a high that doesn't go away. Yeah. And the thing is, yeah, you're going to have to experience emotions, the ups and downs of mood, but man, you're in control and it's so much better. Let's see here. All right. So I've got way too many here. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit and see. Let's see here. Brandon's right. This is a great group. Let's see. Okay. Do you think the breathing and the cold showers? So Barney Gerald, do you think the breathing and the cold showers could help me lose my fears of talking to people I'm not close to? So, okay. So Barney is talking about, okay, fear of talking to people that I'm not close to. Actually, my friend, I am going to be coming out with a few videos specifically on this topic because I get a lot of questions about this. And I have a lot to say about it actually. So it's not going to hurt. Breathwork and cold exposure is certainly not going to hurt. And in many cases, it's a great thing. There are certain breathing techniques that I do whenever I'm nervous. And there are a lot of things I'm going to be talking about in the future when it comes to making specific videos on this topic. Now, I will say this, and I'll make more videos on this in the next few weeks, actually, because this is something that I get a lot of questions about. Public speaking to people that I don't know, making friends, feeling confident in crowds, feeling confident in just situations in general. I get this question a lot. I am going to say just briefly here, the answer, the primary answer, and then there's a lot of little things that can help, but the best thing I can tell a person is exposure. Exposure is always going to be the thing that helps you the most. And what I mean by that is that if you want to get better at talking to people, then you have to talk to people. If you want to get better at basketball, you have to play basketball. If you want to get better at guitar, you have to play guitar. So that is actually the best method of getting there. Now I know. Okay. So I know that is like, but dude, where do I start? I'm really afraid of it. And every time I do it, I feel like I'm making a fool out of myself. And then it makes me not want to do it again. I get it. So I will be making some videos on this because I think it's important to address, especially with how we've all been boxed up over the past year. All over the world, we've all been shut in. And so not many of us have actually been able to have any of that exposure, right? How many of us have really been in a crowd lately? I mean, it's lonely. And then we get rusty, right? And then we start ruminating on, should I talk to these people? I don't know. So, all right, let's see here. Jack says, thanks for answering last question. So reassuring. Awesome. Well, I'm glad, my friend. Does practicing instruments or other types of practice does practicing instrument or other type of practice in cold help focus or distract? So I think I know what you're talking about. And Jack, thank you again for your tip, my friend. I really do appreciate it. You're keeping this channel going and growing. So I really do appreciate that. Jack, so does practice an instrument? So for instance, when you see me in the cold and I'm playing, does that help focus or distract focus? It's actually harder to play an instrument in the cold than to just sit in the cold for me. But some people would say that it's helpful because it keeps their mind off of the cold. It really depends on the person. I know that, like, I talked to one of the world record holders, not the current world record holder, but the previous Joseph Coomer. He sat in pure ice for 2.5 hours, and he uses his emotions and thoughts, and he will go to another place in his mind. whenever the pain gets too much. And he'll come back whenever he's adapted. So there's that. Now, for me, I will tell you this. For me, it's actually harder to play in the cold. Now, I'm not saying that it's insanely hard to do, because I've been playing for a long time and I've been cold training for a long time. So I would say it's going to depend on the person. I wish I could give you a better, like a more definite answer, because, but I really can't. It's really going to depend on the person. I would say this though, singing, humming, those two things seem to help people focus when they're in the cold. I have ice bathed over 1,000 people right in front of my face. And I've seen people recite poetry. I've seen people sing, whistle, hum. Humming is something I usually suggest, because you don't have to have any talent or skill to hum. It's just a natural thing. There's this one girl that sang so beautifully, beautiful singing in an ice bath. And she said it helped her to stay focused and to get through the cold. So, I would say the best advice I would give is try it. Go in the cold. And okay. Hey, you know what? This makes me think. When I first started cold training, I would listen to Bon Jovi and a bunch of like kind of cheesy 80s rock. And I would sing along, and it would make the whole experience really joyful and fun. So maybe that's something that was maybe my secret, and I didn't even know it. Thanks for that question, Jack. All right, let's see here. And Wolfgang, you're absolutely correct. Pianos may not be the best thing to have out in the cold. However, I have seen some pretty cool videos with people playing pianos out in the snow. So who knows? And Butterfly Wings 7777, she says, so I generally hate the cold. If I start this, will I stop dreading winter? Well, you might stop dreading the cold. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you don't like Christmas, or maybe you don't like, the holidays or whatever. But I think for me, every summer I look forward to winter. Every winter I look forward to summer though. I like the summertime. There's nothing wrong with this. I enjoy the summer too. I enjoy all the seasons. I live in a place that I get all four. So I have a spring, a summer, a winter, and a fall and a winter. So I get all four seasons. I look forward to every single season. And I think I'm just really thankful I get to see these seasons. So the more years I'm alive, the more times I've gotten to see them, the more I enjoy them. So anyway, guys, I've been going for quite some time now, and I really do appreciate this group. This has been a really fantastic group. If you have questions, I'm happy. Again, I'm happy that you guys send me questions and things like that. Oftentimes, if I don't get back to you, I apologize. I get a lot of questions now, a lot of emails, and it's actually helps me. It really does help me to have content for my YouTube channel. It's really nice. Sometimes I'm like, oh, a lot of people are wondering about this thing. Well, I better make a video on it. And so, and then a lot of times it just doesn't make its way into a video. So I try to answer on this medium on Fridays. It's 2:00 Eastern time is when I start these out. And I try to at least answer one or two of them. And then of course your questions, and especially, hey, I really do thank you to all of you guys who made a donation today. Thank you for that. That goes right back into the channel. I am trying to upgrade my software and some of my audio. I just recently bought a new camera. And so I really do appreciate all of those things. Guys, I really do appreciate you being here. Next Friday, 2 p.m., I will be here. Thanks so much for liking and subscribing. And don't forget to go out there and be kind to one another. Have a great weekend, guys.